Hello, everyone, and welcome to STEMinist Stories. Today, I have the honor of speaking to Dr. Sonali Dasgupta. A scientist by career, an educator by passion, and the founder of STEMmonsters Education, Dr. Sonali Dasgupta has spent over 15 years working across global research and industry with a PhD in physics from IIT Delhi and over 100 publications to her name. Through STEM Monsters, she's working to shift learning away from marks and rote memorization to curiosity, problem solving, and real world application. So, to start off, let me just ask you where you grew up and what kind of early influences that shaped your interest in science.
Okay, before I answer that question, thank you, Dia, for inviting me to this platform. It's wonderful to see young people like you taking the initiative. We need more initiatives like this. We need more stories to be told that so that it doesn't reach just one child, but reaches your entire peer that you are interacting with. So coming back to your question, I grew up in Delhi, and my initial influences, I think, would have to be I have to credit it to my dad. So he was an engineer, not from any acclaimed university, but in my opinion, he was one of the smartest inventors I have seen in my life. In a time when there was no instrumentation, there was hardly people who knew about what is automation. He used to do automation for big factories like hydroelectric power stations and glass manufacturing companies. He used to work with Siemens, with Larsen and Toubro. So I think he must have been my earliest influence. So we used to work together. You know, in our days, you may not have seen it, but in our days, we used to have the CRT TVs, the cathode ray tube TVs with Uptron, with this huge, big, fat back belly, as I would call it. And it was very common for those TVs to go bad because the capacitor would just spoil. So we would literally open up the entire TV, replace the capacitor. And my job, I think I would have been 10 years old, 11 years old, grade five. My job would be to hold the soldering kit, the soldering wire, while he solders the thing. And I think that would have been my earliest influence in getting interested on tinkering and getting to understand how things work.
Okay, it sort of answers my second question, but later in your
Mhm.
career, who do you think supported you the most and who was your biggest torchbearer, pillar of support, per se?
Um, I think as you go through different phases of life, you will find different supporters. It's never the one person. It doesn't have to be the one person. When you work, you come across, and I'm sure you will as well, you'll come across different people who support you in different junctures, in different capacities. So it doesn't have to be one person. I think growing up in my household, again, full credits to my parents. There was no girl or boy distinction ever, literally ever in the house. So when the storm would hit in Delhi summers are very infamous for Loo, as we call them, Delhi hot winds, and the antennas in those days, the rooftop antennas would go bad. And then it would be my dad and I standing on the rooftop fixing while the signal downstairs was coming or not, and kind of synchronizing them. So yeah, so I think early days, more than being a supporter, I think it was the fact that nobody ever said no to anything. So that would have been initial days when I said I wanted to do science. It was like, okay, do science. I said um, I can't remember a place or a situation where I was ever said no to anything at all. And that is the biggest support you can ever get. Um, Freedom to do what you want to do, whether it is science or not, is the
Yeah,
biggest support of all things, right? And
yeah.
we don't realize it often enough. So I think that would have been my biggest support. Um, when I got into IT, again, I think parents, of course, have been there throughout, and just not by shouting on the rooftop about what I'm doing, but just by not saying no to anything. That's it. Just to live your life. So
Mm.
that's the biggest support. After that, I think I've also been very fortunate in once I got through IT and I was doing my postdoc and master's and PhD. Um, My guides, my teachers, my professors, I've been just very, very fortunate. Um, they did everything they could in their capacity during my PhD. I think I was blessed with the best guides that there can be, because the PhD journey is a long and grueling one. And if you don't get the support of your guide, it can become an equally painful one. And over there as well, Professor Vishnu Pal, Professor Ajay Khatak, Professor M.R. Shenoy, all these professors who used to be my co-guides, my guides during the different phases of my PhD. My primary guide was Dr. Vishnu Pal and Professor M.R. Shenoy. Um, During that entire phase as well, they would support me. They would be on the lookout for opportunities, come back to me. This is way back in early 2000, just 2000, I would guess. I still remember in the fiber optics group that I was part of, one day my professor came to me and said, there's this conference happening in US by an international organization known as the Optical Society of America. And he said, do you want to participate? And I said, nobody in our group has ever participated in that. Nobody has ever submitted a paper in that. Are you sure? He said, yeah, there's always a first time. Why don't you try it? And we did. And we got the scholarship to go visit and present there from the group. So, and this is way back again in 2000 and I think three or four, way back. He would not have been born probably.
I wasn't.
Yeah. So, but that's the support. That's the kind of support. Support comes in various forms, and it's up to us to understand where we are getting the support from.
Yeah.
Um, or I think the other, so that was there. Of course, you make friendships. They are your huge support during difficult times. Then I went from, after I finished my PhD, I went on to UK to do my postdoc, and then I stayed for there. I was there for about 6 years. Again, I had a fantastic boss. I was working with Professor Dave Richardson and his entire group, obviously, very supportive. Um, at this juncture, I think the support when you're trying to work, when you are in an employability, when you're in that career domain, the support again is about where you get appreciation of your work. You are identified, you get appreciation for what you have done, and that's not passed off to somebody else. So I think the definition kind of also changes with what you think about support as you go in your journey. So for
Mm.
me, in the workplace, the definition was that I got due credit for everything that I did and more. Opportunities opened up. So that was the phase when I was doing my postdoc. Then I think I came back. Of course, my family, my spouse has been an incredible support. Again, I think that is just by being there and not um, by being there as a spouse, but being there as a partner in crime. So I think that makes a huge difference when you are trying to build a career and when you have a spouse who believes in you equally, right? So there's no roles in the house. There's no, this is my job and that's your job. It's an equal partnership. So I think that was huge. That is huge. That still is huge. And we don't credit men enough for that. And you are mature enough to understand that how important that is as well. Um, and then, yeah, I guess through outside of all of these, friends always have been supportive. So, yeah, just surround yourself with people who believe in you and you have a complete support system all the time.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I
Yeah.
feel like that's true for me while studying as well. I surround myself with people who are intellectually at a like high level so that I can also like keep maintaining that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No, the life is very short. Life,
yeah.
it right now at your stage, it seems that, oh, there's so many things to do and there's so much time. But whatever you do, take ownership of what you do and surround yourself with people who don't doubt you. And I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. So you've talked about what early influences people had on you. But now, like, let's talk about what kind of early influences shaped your interest in physics. So you talked about
Mm-hmm.
how, I mean, in physics and like education in general, and what the shift kind of looked like for you, how
Mm-hmm.
you went from academia, industry to teaching, and like this
Okay.
like STEM Monsters
Oh,
platform.
well, that's a long journey. Let's see. Um, Interest in physics, I think, was very natural. As I said, my dad and I, we were always
Yeah.
tinkering stuff. We were making things in the house. We made the water pump in Delhi because water wouldn't reach the first floor.
Oh,
So we used to do all of these things. So I think that's where the interest came in. It was very natural. It wasn't something which was really deliberated on. We didn't have counselors in those times. We didn't have people who would tell you what you need to do to build your portfolio. It was just your basic interest, right? So I think that was natural. Um, Sorry, what was the thing after that? What was your question
the
after that?
shift between physics
The
and
shift. Okay.
um,
I don't think there is any shift per se. So while I was working, and this is something I've been very clear about from the very beginning of my career, whether I do a PhD or engineering, it needs to show impact on the ground. So when I was working after my PhD or during my PhD and then the postdoc in the UK, all the projects that I worked with, there was always a theoretical aspect to it, but of course, it was always supported by an experimentation or an application. So I would like to call myself more of an application scientist than a theoretician. Um, so that kind of, I was very clear on that because it's just something which intrigued me more. I want to see what is happening in the lab in next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. There are people, and nothing against them. I hugely respect people who do the theory because that's what builds the base for applied theory after that, right? It only comes after that. So that was something I was very clear about. And during in doing that, I ended up doing multiple projects with various industrial partners. So we used to do projects. So when I was working at Optoelectronics Research Center in the University of Southampton, it was an autonomous labo. I wouldn't call it a R&D. It was an R&D center, okay, and it was an autonomous one. So we didn't have any teaching to do. We didn't have students at the time. We were only doing research. It's like the heaven of doing research. So we were only doing research, and we used to get a lot of industrial projects to work on, and I was obviously very, very attracted towards them. So I picked up a lot of those, started working on projects which could then be seen as an application and implemented by the industry during that time. Then, when I came back to India the first time, which was way back in 2014, I think, 14 or 13, I can't recollect, but around that time, I was working as a consultant to various companies and organizations, again, because um, my boss, who was there in ORC, he kind of suggested, why don't you continue working with us instead of leaving altogether, even though you're not in UK? So I kind of started working remotely even before the word remote was a thing, right? So that happened. So they, again, because I was consulting, I also started talking to multiple companies, understanding what they're doing. So for me, the shift between industry and academia was very blurred. It was never this or this, it was always this and this.
yeah.
And then again, I think the next time I went back to UK in 2018, I was working with a startup which worked in molecular microscopy. It's called Oxford Nanoimaging. And again, that was industry, full scale industry. So along this way, along the entire way, I picked up skills which are transferable, which and I think it's something which I'm pretty happy about, that I could make this shift between industry and academia at will. It was not something which was holding me back. Maybe because of the way I approach things, maybe because of the way the skills that you pick up, right?
Yeah.
So then I think I finally returned to India in about 2019, early 19 or 18, end of 18, just before COVID struck. And I call myself what is technically known as an accidental entrepreneur. So COVID struck, and I wanted to do a few things on my own, figure out what I want to do next, because I had never worked in India before that. And the work culture in India is very different from the work culture in Europe. So I was figuring things out, and one thing led to the other, and COVID hit. I was continuing to do experiments at home with my kid, started posting on WhatsApp as stories. Parents started asking, how do you do that? Can you do it online for us? Most of my network, by the way, at this time was outside of India. So the only way I could engage with them was online. So we started building things, and yeah, as they say, one thing led to the other. And I realized that there's a huge gap between what children are being taught in the schools right now versus what the industry needs. Because I've been doing this, jump between academia and industry and back and forth. So it kind of gave me that bird's eye point of view of what's missing. And I thought, okay, I have worked in R&D, hardcore R&D for about 15, 16 years now. Let me see what I can bring to make a change here. So that was my calling of trying to build something which could bridge this gap. And I had my experiences to pull in from in order to identify those gaps in the way they are and tackle them not just on a superficial level, but tackle them from a very deep science perspective.
Yeah.
The first thing that struck me when I came back to India is, the same books I had read when I was a kid were pretty much the same books the kids are reading today. The experiments are still the same. The world has moved on. While core concepts remain same, the applications have moved on, right, by light years. So what are we doing to help children like you be ready for what's going to face them tomorrow?
Yeah.
So I think that was my biggest motivation to start STEM Monsters. And before I end this question, I think this was a very long answer, but I will take one more line. I think education, the way we do it, is still giving me the same intellectual stimulation because explaining quantum science and the developments of where that has led us to, including, let's say, the quantum dots or the Nobel Prize of 2025 in the quantum tunneling effect that happened, to a high schooler requires that kind of expertise to be able to understand it, distill it down, and share it with students who understand that topic in a way that they can at least comprehend something. So it's
Yeah.
challenging.
Of
It's not
course.
easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
And
a long answer. Sorry about that.
no, while you say it's long, it was also quite like eye-opening and reflective on your journey. So I think it was the whole point of why we're here. Um, um, I also wanted to ask you, as a woman in STEM, I know you said like throughout your childhood there was never any restrictions around being a woman versus being a
Mhm,
man. There was no difference. But
mhm,
while working in the field and between different jobs, industry, academia, different places, different settings, have you
mhm.
experienced being a woman as like an advantage or a disadvantage, or just like is it kind of part of your professional identity, like you're tagged along with like women?
Hmm. Okay, so there are three questions in there.
Yeah,
One is advantage, one is disadvantage, and one is have you tagged do you identify yourself as a woman in STEM, right?
yeah,
So let me answer the third question first. I don't think I identify myself as a woman in STEM. I identify myself as a person in STEM.
yeah,
And that has been throughout. Primarily because, again, as I said earlier, I think I've been very fortunate
yeah,
in always having the support. It is also possible that I did not dwell on being a woman because I wasn't raised that way.
yeah,
So maybe I was oblivious to it. I just went on, and I fortunately had people who supported that, and I got credit for what I did. So I didn't think about it ever. Having said that, there is a but, of course. So let me give you the advantage first and then the disadvantage. There are a lot of things in world where we can call it a disadvantage and we can dwell upon it and we can get agitated by it. But at the same time, you can either get agitated or you can do something about it, right? So
yeah,
I'll give you one example when went to present my one of my earlier papers on while I was doing my PhD, and this is again something which my guide told me. He said, amongst all of those 20 people standing on the stage, presenting to another 300 odd people at the international conference, you may be the only, or maybe one of the two or one of the three women presenting out there. Now, you can look at it as a disadvantage, or you can think just because of the virtue of being a woman, you will have their entire attention. Make that attention count.
Yeah.
Blow them away while they are not ready for it. And I still believe that. You get an opportunity, you can either say, oh, I'm only the only woman doing this. What am I going to do? Or you say, I'm the only woman doing this. Let me show them what I can do. So it's all about that, right? It's about turning the situation to work your way.
Yeah.
So that's one. Disadvantages, not during my academic career for sure. I did not find anything holding me back. I got promotions left, right, and center. I had a super supportive boss throughout in my 3 stints that I did. So I don't think I ever was at a disadvantage there. But having said that, I think towards the latter half of my journey, while my boss was extremely supportive, there were certain people who made me feel that I might have been the only woman in that entire group. And not because of anything unsafe, I'm not talking about gender discrimination, but by doubting you. Just that. And
Yeah.
again, I think when you believe in yourself, you ooze that confidence and you end up getting somebody who supports you. At least there's a chance that you end up, or maybe I was lucky. So I used to report to the CTO at the time, super supportive. So it did not matter to me. I just went on doing what I was doing. The other thing is have a thick skin,
Yeah.
you know, have a thick skin. Don't let it bother you. Yes, people have the right to say what they want to do. You have the right to do what you want to do,
Yeah.
right? So that was one. Um, the other disadvantage, and this is a conjecture, so I don't know whether it's true or not. When I came back to India specifically and started working, and as an entrepreneur for that matter, I did not feel I was a woman entrepreneur, but and as I had worked in my entire career. But there are times when I wonder whether some of the doors which did not open for me in the last 5 years were because I was a woman. But again, as I said, I don't like to dwell on the fact. I would just say that I was not good enough, maybe, or I would just say that that was a learning experience. What can I do differently so that I get it the next time?
Yeah.
Um, so there is discrimination. I'm not denying that. Not even for a second. There is discrimination. What I am saying is, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Do we just keep on talking about being a woman? Oh, I'm a woman. Oh, I'm a woman. Play the woman card. Or do we do something about it? Right? I hope I answered your question
You did. And I love the
to a
shift
certain
in
extent.
perspective. I've never heard something come out that way, especially what you were talking about while you were presenting. The shift in perspective,
Yeah.
like, it gave me a lot of clarity.
And imagine that imagine my guide is not a woman. So that's what I was telling you about the support. So
Yeah.
if you are fortunate, if you can surround yourself with people who believe in you, it could be your father, it could be your mother, it could be anybody, you will find the courage and the confidence to go out there and blast your way through.
Yeah.
There will always be challenges. There will always be this thing of women in STEM. I, for one, I'm the last person who will not take ownership of where I am. We can either learn and keep moving forward, or we can be sad and lament. I
Yeah.
prefer to choose the first. So, yeah.
It's quite amazing to like be able to move through all this.
It's not easy. It is how you train your mind because you believe in yourself. And that belief in yourself comes from your support system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I'm an optimist. I'm like diehard optimist.
So I want to ask you, especially because you've created like STEM monsters, how do you see the future of like education, especially in science and STEM fields? And like what concerns do you have maybe? So this is also two questions,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, two questions and very difficult ones. Okay. I'll start with a disclaimer. I don't think any answer that I give you today would be accurate because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody knows. The technology is moving too fast, the environment is changing too fast. So I don't know the correct answer. I can only give you my opinion of what
yeah,
I think. Okay. So the first question was with respect to where do you see the education system going, right? And in STEM especially.
yeah,
Um, I think with AI coming in, knowledge about computer science, knowledge about coding is going to become like your English, maths, physics, chemistry that you do, the generic field of knowledge that you need to do. It's going to be there. It's not going to be an advantage. It's going to be a must know kind of thing. Literacy, more at the literacy level. Where students have an opportunity is, in my opinion, is in hardware and in core sciences, because that is something which still has not been documented. And the LLMs in its current form, the generative AI in its current form, is still a language, large language model. It still is mixing things together and building things, patterns which we may not have seen. It's still very powerful, but it is still a large language model. It is not something which is creating logic as it is. So I think core sciences will regain their importance because as more and more people move towards specializing in this, AI, so-called AI, and more people are going towards it, AI is going to get commodified in some time, and computer science is going to become popular. So hardware and core sciences are going to remain important and become even more important, in my opinion. And the other thing was about concern. I think while there are many advantages to AI in automating the routine things, the current AI in its form, whether it is the Socrates model of thinking that ChatGPT has come up with, or even Gemini in the learning mode that is there, I think that only works if this child is intrinsically motivated, the student, the learner is intrinsically motivated, and if they know what they want to learn. And in fact, I presented a paper at IIT Chennai a couple of weeks ago on why this does not work. The basic presumption that the student or the learner is motivated, intrinsically motivated, and leaving the learner with an AI system doesn't work. There's a lot of emotional value. There's a zone of proximal development that is required, which is that a learner or a child learns not only through information, but also through their socio-cultural surroundings.
yeah,
My influences of my father, your influence, maybe your dad or somebody you have in your immediate structure, will shape how you learn.
yeah,
So AI has advantages if it is used carefully, and if all of these things are used carefully. Outsourcing thinking from a see, I can use AI. I have had 15 years of training, 20 years of training of thinking for myself. But for someone like you who have had 4 years of thinking and then moving on to AI, you become super dependent on that. So use it to automate, but using it to actually learn in the current form that is there, I'm very, very cynical. It may improve. I think, will become more useful for teachers than for students. I think giving it in the hands of students in the current form that is there is a scary move. And it is being driven by companies with vested interests for commercial reasons.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are going to argue with me and come at me after this, but that is something I strongly believe in.
No, and I understand the perspective that barely any critical thinking ourselves. we're being like allowed to
Yeah,
use.
you need that training. You need the training before you can jump onto taking help from something,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't have that training, then I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so my
Mm.
final question, and this is one I ask all my guests, is if you have just one piece of advice or one takeaway from this, what would you say to all the young girls and anyone who's interested in STEM?
I think if you are interested in STEM, if you are a girl and if you're interested in STEM, leave out the girl part. Focus on the interest,
Yeah,
and you'll be fine. That's it. Don't consider yourself as a girl in STEM. Consider yourself as someone interested in STEM. That's it. Let your brain help you believe what you believe in. Self talk, positive, right? Self talk, positive thoughts. Don't think of it as a disadvantage. Don't think of it as an advantage either. You know,
just
just move on with it. Yeah.
yeah, that's a
So I
powerful
think
thing.
that would, I see a lot of girls stopping even before they start because of self doubt. And that's the worst thing you can do to yourself. So just believe in yourself and do what you want to do. Get the people who support you and move on.
I think that'll resonate
Yeah,
with a lot of people and a lot of girls watching. So
I
thank
hope
you so
so.
much for this amazing conversation. Thank you. It was
Thank you, dear.
I was very inspired by your journey. So it was
Thank you.
amazing getting to talk to you.
Thank you very much, dear.